Hey everyone, good afternoon. Um, as most of you know, recently we've had some problems with the parole board with Shirley Smith coming out lately. I'm talking about the corruption that has taken place. We're asking folks from Ohio to send letters on our behalf and the behalf of all the inmates that has to see the parole board, which is a little bit over 8,000 old law and new law that are down that has to see the parole board. The first letter we need sent to the governor, and you would send it to the Honorable Mike DeWine, Rife Center, RIFFE Center, 10th floor, 770 South High Street, Columbus, Ohio 43215. And let me read the letter that I sent that Mildred helped me with. Um, I'm not sure if I'll read it all because it takes quite a bit of time. I put down as an Ohio resident and the founder of Fair Treatment Reform and Reentry in Columbus, I'm writing to you to ask for the dismissal of Cynthia Mauser, currently Managing Director of Courts and Community and Supervisor of the Parole Board. At the beginning of her tenure in 2006 as the chair of the Ohio Parole Board, advocacy groups for reform and family members of prisoners had high hopes that she would have a positive influence on the policies and practices of the board. But over the years, especially after she was appointed as a parole board chairwoman, she badly disappointed those hopes. As a classic example, she was asked by former Governor John Kasich to evaluate inmates who had been incarcerated for decades. She replied, in effect, that none of those inmates, several hundreds in numbers, deserved to be released because they were the worst of the worst. The recent highly critical news and commentary by former board member Shirley Smith has proven once again that complaints from inmates of the unfair practices and accountability, practices and policies of the Ohio Parole Board are true. The board has unlimited power and too little accountability. Moreover, it is stacked with members biased against offenders such as Mark Houck and Ellen Venters and the current chairwoman Tracy Thelmer. As we have known for years, members of the board have operated without guidance since 2010, making up and ad hoc rules as they go, giving too much weight to the original offense and virtually no credit for the decisions of good behavior and the rehabilitation programming that is offered by the state. Cynthia Mauser and members of the board don't believe in redemption and rehabilitation. The culture that the board has fostered for many years is to treat inmates as less than humans at parole hearings. They must respect inmates' human dignity. At their parole hearings, inmates should be evaluated according to their institutional records of behavior and programs undertaken, not just the nature of their original crime. People can change. People deserve a second chance. I do believe that inmates can receive a fair evaluation or a real second chance as long as Miss Mauser is out of office. That's the one that goes to the governor. So we're asking for Cynthia Mauser's resignation when he writes to the governor. Um, when we, I'm also asking people to write to the Ohio ODRC director, Smith, who is recently appointed. Again, we're going to ask for Cynthia Mauser's resignation. Pro board member, Mr. Hauk. Let me see where their names are. Okay, Mr. Mark Hauk, March, and then Hauk is Houk. Then Ellen Venters. Her last name is Venters, and the current chairwoman, Tracy, Trayce. Then this is how you spell her last name, Thallemer. It's kind of hard to pronounce. But her ties with Cynthia Mauser and their friendship, they cannot operate a fair parole board. Now the one for the director now would go to ODRC Director Smith, 770 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. I don't have the zip code again. That is 770 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. These are pro board members that have been around for many years, as long as 2003. Mr. Hauk is a former warden of several different institutions, and he was pretty cruel as a warden. If you remember some of the newspaper articles that came out that recently, according to former pro board member Shirley Smith, there was a Spanish guy that came before Mr. Hauk and Miss Smith and a few other people, and he didn't speak any or hardly any English. So Miss Smith asked Mr. Hauk, let's hold off and get an interpreter so that he can get a fair hearing. Well, Mr. Hauk's response was, no, we're not doing it. This gives me an excuse to give him more time, which inmates were called flops, because a lot of their sentences are from either 10 to life, 15 to life, and they're supposed to really be released after their minimums. This is one thing that our organization is working on with Beverly Seymour, who wrote a proposal up, and I'll have the final copy very soon, because I told her we had a conference call on Friday. So I want to read it to our board members. It's about 16 or 17 pages. Legislative date is February 21st. We're going to meet 12:30 at the coffee shop inside the State House. When you walk in, you go through a metal detector in the front doors. There will be State Highway Patrol officers there. So you walk straight down that hall behind them, and the coffee shop will be on the right. You'll pass the gift shop, which will be on the left. So if you pass all that, you're doing good. Now, if you're coming from the garage, and I'm not sure how you get there through the garage, but stop and ask the State Highway Patrol that you see there, and ask them where the coffee shop is. And I believe there's only one coffee shop there, so that should not be any problem. But we're talking about up to 12 pro board members. That's what the max is that they're allowed to have. They're at 8 right now, and I'm sure they're going to go up. But to be honest, there needs to be a whole overhaul of the pro board, and put new people in there, people that are fair, defense attorneys instead of people that's only for the victims. We have 2 pro board members that are only that are there as victim advocates. The inmates do not have any advocate, so we're also asking that inmates have a representation for them as well. I understand that there's a lot of pain in some of the victims for whatever the crime was, and we do have compassion for it. But keeping people in till they're too old, then paroling them when they're 80, they're going to cost the state more money, and it's going to be more of a hardship. We want to get these folks out that they're young enough to be able to work. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We have a guy up at Madison who we know as a fact he is innocent. And because he would not admit guilt to a crime he did not do, and 10 years ago they actually gave him a parole, but then shortly before, yeah, and they said that he was a model inmate ready for society, he would be safe out there and everybody else would be safe. But shortly before he was to leave, they took his parole away. Then again, 10 years later, which was this year, he went to the parole board again, and they gave him a nickel, which is 5 years, and said he was not suitable for parole. But 10 years ago, they said he was suitable. Now they say he's not suitable. Then we have a gentleman up at Mansfield who's been down 25 or 26 years, charged and convicted at the age of 19. So he was bound over to adult courts. He went to the parole board this year. They gave him 6 years, but he was complaining to them that they had the wrong file in front of him. It was not even his file, it was another inmate's. And of course, I'll get to this but they told him you don't have a right to talk. So they went on with the parole hearing with the wrong person's file. And these stories, we have another guy, I think he's at Mansfield, he's been down 48 years, and his sentence was 10 to life. This is just getting ridiculous. Some of the complaints on the parole board members are eating at the parole board hearings, coming in late for the parole board hearings, disrespecting the inmate and along with the family members. Then we have parole board members that are calling in their votes because they did not show up, and there's no accountability there, but they're allowed to vote by absentee ballot and not know nothing about the inmate. And who's paying for all this? This is the most important. Who is paying for these? You, the taxpayers. Wouldn't you want your money used more in rehabilitation, transitional housing, instead of releasing these folks homeless, where they're going to do whatever it takes to support themselves? And I understand why they're doing it. I'm not saying it's right, but the state's pushing them into it. But if we would take the money, which is probably close to $30-35 million a year, because they have all these people locked up that should have been home 20-30 years ago. Let's take that money, put it into reentry, programming, transitional housing, and let's start rehabilitating instead of just keeping people behind bars till they're 92, 93 years old. They paroled a 92-year-old one not too long ago, and of course they called him into the case manager's office, and she said, "What type of job are you going to have when you get out?" This guy's in a wheelchair, mind you. But they still asked him. This is going to be ridiculous. Hi, Charles. So we need these letters sent. One to Governor Kasich, and he's at the Rife Center, 10th floor, 770 South High Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. We're asking in this letter the resignation of Cynthia Mauser. And then also a letter to the new director of the ODRC, Ms. Smith, at the ODRC office, 770 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. If you'd like more information on this, feel free to give me a call at 614-404-4924 or email us at fairtreatmentreform@gmail.com. Now, we're asking for donations because this is very costly. We have to print out close to 50 copies of the proposal, and there's 17 pages involved, and plus inmates are going to want copies. Family members or people on the that's free, we can email them a copy once we get it. But the postage you send it in to inmates to make the copies is tremendous. If you are able to make any donation of any amount, no donation is too small. You can go to our website, www.fairtreatmentreformandreentry.org. Again, that is www.fairtreatmentreformandreentry.org. Fair Treatment Reform and Reentry.org. Um, on Sunday nights at 6 p.m., Google up Voices of Reform. It's mine and Candace's group, Candace Hudson, and request to be on that page. We have a talk show every Sunday night at 6 p.m. 2 weeks ago we did on the Pro Board, and I'm sure we're going to come around to that again. But and last week was Answers and Question Day. This week we're going to talk about juveniles convicted as adults. And I think, and I'm not sure though, Candace could put down if I'm wrong, I think next week is drugs in our prison system. Tomorrow we have a young man from another state who was charged at a very young age and convicted at a very young age as a juvenile, and he'll be our guest on Sunday night at 6 p.m. So, we're doing a lot of positive things, but we need the community involved. We need the people statewide involved, and this is really a people issue, a human rights issue. No person deserves to be abused, and I'm not saying what the incarcerated did was wrong. I mean, right, which it was wrong, if they're guilty. But I'm saying that they still deserve to be treated with respect. Their punishment was being taken away from their families. So let's unite in this, and let's send these letters out. And if you'd like to send us a copy, feel free at fairtreatmentreform@gmail.com, folks. We're here to serve, and right now is our busiest time we can shine. So again, February 21st at 12:30 p.m., we're meeting at the State House and at the coffee shop. Again, if you walk through the front doors, you walk past the State Highway Patrol and walk straight down past the gift shop, which will be on your left, and you'll see the coffee shop on your right. We're going to work towards getting a proposal introduced to reform the parole board that Beverly Seymour has drafted up. It's taken her a year from our rough draft that she did to do this, to research, putting in how much money the state will save. And then she keeps thinking of something else to add. So we put some stuff in there that we can negotiate on, but there's some we will not budge on because we have people's lives at stake. So folks, please join us on Legislative Day. Thank you, everyone.